Hello, Next Levelers. Bob Gibbons here with The Next Level Show. Excited for another interesting and exciting show where we learn from entrepreneurs. You know, a few years ago, well, let's be serious, many years ago, my wife was homeschooling our two kids, and they would often join other homeschooling groups, and they would do interesting field trips. And one day, they went to a local meat market in Plano. And while the place was lovely, it was well stocked, it had helpful, cheerful employees. The thing that made it most memorable for her was a sign proudly displayed on their counter that said, "Pork so good it'll make you squeal." She laughed about that. Our kids are all grown up now and gone, but Jan still laughs about that all the time. And that person that owned that company is Gary Hirsch, and he's our guest today. Hirsch's Specialty Meat is the company. They're based in Plano on Parker Road at Alma, and they have been around for a long time, 25, 30 years, I'm guessing?
Since 1992.
92, 27 years.
Yep.
Is that right? 27? Am I doing my math right? Well, Gary, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, I'm excited. This is great.
Well, cool. And for our listeners, you can check them out online by going to hirschsmeats.com, and that's spelled HIRSCHSMEATS.com, hirschsmeats.com. So, Gary, you're the butcher of Plano.
Oh, you mean I'm the oldest?
No,
I think that's what you're getting at.
You know, I've heard of the butcher of other things, but you're the butcher of Plano, so that's pretty cool. So how did you get into the butcher biz?
Actually, many years ago, back in the 70s, I had a neighbor that I had worked for back when I was 16 years old. He had brought a 7-Eleven franchise. Now, mind you, this goes so far back, it's when 7-Eleven was only open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m.
I remember that.
People don't realize that. But I worked for this fella for like 75 cents an hour. Don't laugh. I bought a car off of him making 75 cents an hour.
Yeah, well, that tells you how much cars were then.
Yeah, but anyways, we worked very well together, and he eventually sold the franchise, went on to work. He was always in the grocery business. So wherever he went, he took me along, grocery warehouses and whatnot. And finally one day, he had actually bought a family-owned grocery store in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. And at that time, I was same neighborhood, sitting across the street on the front porch, and walked up to me and said, "Hey, Flash, how'd you like to be a butcher?"
Flash?
That
hold
was
the
my
phone
nickname
now.
he gave me.
Interesting story, but what's Flash mean?
I was quick at everything I did.
You weren't a runner, though.
I didn't dilly-dally. I just gave me a job, boom, knock it out.
Okay, I was hoping you were like a sprinter or something.
No, just quick at doing tasks.
Okay.
So he said, "Flash, how'd you like to be a meat cutter?" And of course, I knew nothing about it, but sure, why not? I had nothing to lose. And it was great because I got into it in this little family-owned grocery store. I had a little meat department. I learned from the older guys, of course. And the more I learned, the more I just enjoyed it because I realized how much the average person did not know about the trade that I was getting into.
Okay.
And I was excited to be part of that.
So how old were you at that point when you...
24 maybe.
So you worked for this guy for 8 years, doing everything there is to know about groceries.
Yes, a great mentor to this day. I still go back to Michigan and visit.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. So is he still in that business, or is he...
No, he's retired. He did sell the store, did some other things. But some of the most important things about business I learned from him.
So did he have like a chain, or did he always...
No.
He was just like a one...
It was just a
location?
mom and pop little grocery store. This is when all the big chains were coming in and starting to do 24-hour days, things like that. But what was great about the little store was you didn't have to pay for your groceries. You could just sign your receipt. In the end of the month, come in and pay for all your receipts.
Yeah.
We delivered twice a day to homes. It was just a unique
Sounds like
experience, and I
Mayberry.
really loved that atmosphere.
Well, you're building a relationship with all your customers over time.
Yep.
That's got to be fun.
Yep.
And I got to believe that's where you are now as well, but let's save that for another time. So 24, you start cutting meat. You like it. How long do you do that with this guy, and how do you know that you're doing it right?
Well, you learn. It's always more to learn. I decided to get married and decided I need to move on elsewhere, get benefits, things like that. I did work for a fellow friend that had a meat market, and one day after Christmas, my parents, who had already moved down to Dallas, My father had passed away, which means we had to come to Dallas for the funeral. Between Christmas and New Year's, it was 70 degrees and sunny every day. So on the way back after this funeral, wife and I looked at each other and said, let's come next fall, pack up, move to Dallas, which we did. We came down, no jobs or anything. And eventually at 81, I got a job working at a local chain.
So when you go to work for the local chain, you're in their meat market, I assume.
Right.
And
yes.
so do they have like an apprenticeship program or a training program? I mean, what is the process by which somebody really learns to how to be a professional butcher?
Good question, because the way I learned how to cut meat was different than the guys in the chains. I learned how to break carcass beef. I was in the business before everything was cryovac wrapped and in a box.
Yes.
So you come to a chain store and everything's in boxes and it's all production. It's do this fast, hurry up, get it out on the counter. It was a new learning experience for me. And it was either, get on board or get out. But it was a great, great learning experience for me. So now I had not only the experience of breaking cattle, knowing how this goes from the start, knowing how to make sausage, all these other things that they don't do in grocery stores.
So when you say breaking the cattle, you actually got a full carcass
Right,
and had to
sides of beef.
disassemble it. So you were the
Right.
guy saying, all right, this is a rump roast, this is a,
Where
the
it comes
ribs,
from.
this is
Yeah.
whatever. And you had to actually turn the whole thing into those individual
Yep.
pieces. And I got to assume at the chains, somebody's doing that at some processing plant, who knows where, and then
Right.
shipping it.
That was funny because one of my first stints was, if you'll remember, the old Simon David store in Inwood.
Sure.
I was over there working for a great market manager, Austin Locklear. I remember one day somebody had ordered a side of beef. And chain stores didn't do that. They didn't bring in sides of beef, but Simon David, being the specialty store it was, brought it in. So here's the side of beef. We bring it out, throw it on the block, and there's like 7 of the other meat cutters standing around. And Austin looks at everybody and says, okay, who wants to tackle this? Nobody knew what to do.
Yeah, they don't have a
So,
clue.
yeah, I raised my hand and went at it, and everyone's like, how do you know that? Where'd you learn that? And I learned it from the beginning.
Interesting. Yeah, that's got to be interesting. When I was in 9th grade in Pennsylvania, my biology teacher in 9th grade took everybody on a field trip to a slaughterhouse. And I was like, why do we need to do this for a biology field trip? But, I mean, it was fascinating to see how they break down, from actually live on the hoof to all the different stuff. Now, it wasn't always pretty, and a lot of people became vegetarians there for a couple of weeks. But it was actually fascinating to see how that happens.
It's very educational, and it's very fast.
Oh, amazing.
And that's what people wouldn't understand, how fast a process it is and how clean it is.
And honestly, this is going to sound really weird, as humane as it possibly could be. I mean, that sounds weird when you're killing an animal, but realistically, there wasn't a lot of time that they were suffering at all.
No.
I mean, it was like immediate, because they actually put a gun to their head, and it wasn't a real gun. It was like a stun gun almost. As far as I know, it shot a metal rod or something into their brain, and it basically stunned them. So
yeah, it knocked them out because you still
Immediate.
want them to be their heart beating when you process them.
really,
Yes, because you want to. If you notice, once it's up there, they'll take a knife and
Cut the jugular.
Cut the jugular, and you see how much blood comes out so fast. It's because that heart is pumping the blood out.
ah,
And
interesting.
just to correct, if you want to be correct, politically correct now, it's not called slaughtering or killing, harvesting.
Oh, really?
So if anybody's offended, we call it harvesting now.
So we're butchering vegetables and harvesting
Yes,
animals.
yes.
I have not heard that term before from any of the politically correct. So butcher has to be out the window as well.
And butchers, people call me a butcher. I'm really not a butcher. Butcher's the guy that works in the packing house that actually does that process.
Okay.
We're really at the level we're at. We're meat cutters,
Okay,
because we get it and we take it down and break it into the primal and all the special cuts.
gotcha. Interesting. All right, so you come to Dallas. You work for this company for a while,
13 years.
so a long while. When do you suddenly get the idea, hey, I'm going to set up my own shop?
Well, I felt that I had enough time in the Dallas market to understand the Dallas market. I still love the idea of a small family-owned meat market. I loved the atmosphere, everything about it. Well, what happened one day is my chain got bought out by another chain.
Oh,
And they said, don't worry, nothing's going to change.
of course.
Well, the very next day, everything changed.
bet
And
you I
they
can-
said, oh, by the way, if you want to keep your job, we're going to pay you $2 an hour less, and you have to reapply for it.
So you went from a shop that was union to one that was not, I
No, I
assume.
was never in a union
No?
shop
Okay.
in the meat business. But I had already, a year or two prior, I was already buying equipment, having it in storage, because I knew eventually I was going to do that. That just pushed me to do it quicker.
So you're planning ahead.
Yep.
That's brilliant. So so you just saw this coming. You were clairvoyant. And
Yeah, but what also pushed me too is that I saw the way the industry was going, and they were going to go to lower grade meats, meats pumped full of salt water, basically. And there's no way I could stand behind a counter and tell somebody, yeah, you're going to enjoy this. This is going to be a good piece of meat, knowing that it really wasn't of the quality that I'd be proud to sell. Because everybody, all the chains back then were price competitive. Who can offer the lower prices? It wasn't about the quality. I saw the quality and service going away and being replaced by low prices.
yeah, it always made me nervous whenever I would see these circulars that would quote some, dollar whatever per pound, $3.99 per pound, whatever it is, and you're thinking, man, that's a really good price. I wonder how old that is.
No, it has nothing to do with age. It has to do with quality. And Jimmy Dean, one of my favorite saying is, when it comes to meat, there's no such thing as a good deal. You get exactly what you pay for.
Really?
And when I see somebody advertise quality meats and I see what it is, people go, how can they advertise that? Quality if it's such low quality, because low quality is a level of quality.
Yeah, just not
You
a
can
good
have
one.
low, medium, high quality.
Interesting. All right, we're going to take our first break. We will be right back after this. Hey, welcome back to the Next Level Show. I'm Bob Gibbons, your host, and I'm talking to Gary Hirsch of Hirsch's Specialty Meats in Plano, Texas. And check him out online, hirschsmeats.com. And Hirsch's is spelled Hirschs. So, Gary, we were talking about when you decided to start your own thing, and really the thing that pushed you was the quality issue and how you saw the chains not really offering the right quality or as good a quality as you would like to be selling to people. So when you decide to start your own shop, what's your first step in that? I mean, you mentioned that you already had started buying some equipment and stashing it in the garage or whatever, hoping for that day, but what actually makes you pull the trigger?
The desire. I felt I knew enough about cutting meat to be successful. There's a lot of things I didn't know. I kind of jumped into it. You get yourself a broker, you find yourself a location, you look at what the cost is going to be to get open. You go through that process, and you open up, and then you go, where's everybody?
You mean you don't just put up a sign and everybody floods in?
No, I sent out these little, mailers, flyers saying, hey, Hirsch's is now open. Come on, buy some meat. And I remember the night before I opened, I spent the entire night cutting meat, making sausage to fill the counters so we're ready to open the next day. I had my brother down there help me set up. Other people came in, and the stores opened at 9 o'clock. And I sat there from 9 until 11 in the morning, wondering how come nobody's coming in. They'd come up to the door, but they wouldn't come in. I forgot to unlock the door. I was so tired. That's the truth. The door's locked.
You know what? That's funny you say that, and I'm glad you did say that, because there's so many things we do that we think we're so sophisticated, and yet the basics sometimes still get in the way.
Yep.
I don't care how sophisticated you can be.
So from there on, it was a definite learning process. I realized there's so much I didn't know. But I think what really saved me is I've surrounded myself with the right people.
Yeah.
So when I needed help, when I needed questions answered, they were there. I mean, if you go into business, you got to have a banker, you got to have an accountant, you got to have an attorney. All these people are so important to help you succeed. And one thing I've always learned is ask for help. Don't be ashamed. If you feel like you're failing, don't hide your head, and ask somebody, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I handle this?
Did you ever hire like a business coach or somebody that was kind of helping you sort of figure out that route?
At a certain point when I want to increase business, I had someone come by to tell me, here's what I need to do to take it to the next level. And it had to do with being on the internet. And I'm not a high-tech guy. I have no interest in all this stuff. And he said, look, if this is what you want to go, this is what you have to do. You have to create this newsletter. You've got to publish it, get it out there, and create a list and all this. Okay, so we did. And within 2 or 3 months, we increased business by 15%.
Nice.
But because of my own ignorance, I might not have ever done that.
Yeah, I mean, other people can often see what we don't see ourselves.
Yes.
And I noticed that in my business in commercial real estate, where I'm representing companies and nonprofits to find space for them, I know it so well. I've been in it 35 years.
Yeah.
I assume too much. It's just like acronyms. My wife is the queen of acronyms. She used to be in the insurance business. She now works with me full time. She loves acronyms, and she throws these acronyms out as if everybody knows them. And I'm always like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And it's a good lesson because we shouldn't assume too much because, we got to look at it from our customer's perspective. So I think sometimes hiring somebody from, quote, outside the industry who doesn't really know anything about it can really help clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a podcast I really love called Story Brand. I was actually listening to it on the way here. A guy named Don Miller. I think they're based in the Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee area. And they talk all about how do you get your message across in a very clear, concise way, and confusion is the enemy. And so I would highly recommend that podcast to anybody that wants to listen to it. It's called Story Brand. Okay, so you open up, and you said 92 was when you opened up. And when you open up, are you in sort of your own freestanding building? Are you in a strip center with a whole lot of other businesses?
Yeah, we are in a strip center, Parker and Custer. And the reason we chose that spot was because Home Depot was going out and Super One Foods was coming in. That'd be a good draw for us, which was fine for us to start out after about 13 years. And we did okay. I mean, it took us a while. I remember after my first year, I was ready to bail, so I wasn't making any money. And the accountant sat me down and said, I said, Dave, I can't do this. I'm not making any money. I'm not making a living. My wife's telling me I might need to sell the house. And he looked at me and said, no, you're not. I said, what do you mean? He says, look, I've worked with many small businesses. Your numbers are on track. You're going to make it. You cannot quit right now. And I'm like, really? You're okay, if you say so. And I continued. And then a few months later, same thing. Dave, I'm not making it. What am I going to do? He says, okay, you need to hire a manager.
Oh, my goodness.
I said, wait a minute. No, I can't even, I'm not even paying myself. You want me to hire someone I have to pay? He says, no, you don't understand. If you hire a manager to come here and run this, you can get out and pull business in. Mm-hmm. People want to know you. People want to do business with the owner. And I took that leap of faith, found someone that could be there. Well, I started going to chamber meetings, got involved in civic organizations, and lo and behold, within a few months, it all started turning around.
Now, one of the things that's always impressed me about you is you mentioned civic organizations, Plano Chamber of Commerce. We met through the Plano Chamber of Commerce. And the thing that's always amazed me is how much you give away to charitable organizations, to people. You're the big prize. On Friday mornings in the Plano Chamber of Commerce, they have this thing called Business Interchange. Everybody gets to get up, give a 30-second commercial on what they do, but there's a lot of door prizes. The big prize every week was the Hirsch's specialty meat, and you'd bring a cooler, and there'd be all kinds of cool stuff in there, and people just vied for that thing like it was gold. It was always funny to me, and I actually won it one time, and I was thrilled because I'm a vegetarian, so what do I care? But oh man, I was the hero when I walked home, and my wife and kids who are not vegetarians were so excited to get that Hirsch's specialty meats. So I always wondered, how can you give away so much? How can you be out there so much sponsoring stuff and giving the prize and doing all this stuff and really make a profit?
Plano's been good to us. We've managed to build a business with great customers. And finally, someday we became profitable. And, you get back what you give. It's that simple. You've got, you can say it's another way of advertising,
Right.
another way of marketing, but it works. You have to be involved in your community because without them, Hirsch's would not exist.
Is there any kind of a magical amount that you should be investing in your marketing through charitable organizations or chambers of commerce or whatever, where you can say, hey, I can give away X percentage of my revenue or X percentage of my profit or whatever, that is sort of the number that you found to be most successful?
I don't have a number there. I really don't. As a small business, we get a lot of requests, especially now going into the fall. Every church, every school, synagogues, everybody coming, wanting donation items. And being a small business, we had to set a limit on how much we can do.
Absolutely.
So, typically now you're going to get a gift card for a certain amount. I can't give out thousands of dollars to everybody that comes along. There's just no way.
No.
You put yourself out of business. But you do what you can when you can. We don't say yes to everybody, but we try.
Yeah. Well, you're making a big impact, and I mean it's noticed. So I would just say good job, and you've set a great example for a lot of others, and I hope they're following, because that would be nice to see. So, all right, you open up, you're in a strip center. I remember your first store. I moved to Plano the first time in '92, so right about the time you opened. I moved away after 2 years, for 2 years, came back in '96. And so I remember the Home Depot, I remember the Super One Foods, and then they tore the building down, and they kicked you out.
Yes, that was a shock because I had customers coming in the store saying, so what are you going to do when they tear this place down? I go, what are you talking about? They knew because Home Depot had done a survey or something in that area. And I had to call my landlord and say, what's going on? I haven't heard any of this. And, of course, us merchants went down to City Hall, not City Hall, but the City Council meetings and tried to say, wait a minute, this isn't fair. You're giving us like 3 months. No, so we got them to expand that time till the end of the year, till the end of December, give us time to find new locations and whatnot. And it worked out actually better because we did find a location, had its own parking, had great visibility.
It's where you are now.
And where I am now. So that made a huge difference in our business. We had more than twice the space, so we could offer more products and more services.
So you moved one major intersection east of where you were, but your store now is very close to the street, has high visibility. There's, when you're in a strip center, there's a whole lot of other signs on that building, so it's not always easy for customers driving by to see it. And you were so far off the road that they really couldn't reasonably see that anyway. So unless they were already in the parking lot, it's not like they were going to spy you driving by on Parker. Now, you're almost next to the Starbucks, so that's good. And there's several other businesses right there. So your visibility is huge.
That's true. But here's an amazing thing is we've been there now 13, 14 years. And every week we'll have somebody come in that says, I've been driving by here for years. I saw these cars in this parking lot, and I finally decided to come in, and by golly, if I wouldn't have known it was this nice, I would have been in sooner. What do you got to do to get them in the door?
Exactly. Well, you don't have the purple gorilla in the parking lot. You need to do that, I guess.
Then you got to go get special permits, and
There are permits out the wazoo, and all the cities. I was going to say in Plano, but it's all the cities anymore. It's not that easy. So your lease is going to expire in the future, and you're trying to figure out how soon should I start working on that? Is it 6 months or a year or 2 years before my lease expiration? Well, there isn't an exact date. This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and my clients always meet with me about 2 years before their expiration date, and we create a strategy. And then we review that strategy again a year later. And so we're always working toward what's right for them, not what they think might be an arbitrary date by which they need to figure this out. The keys in determining how much time you need are whether or not you're going to move, whether or not you need to expand, will there need to be construction on wherever you're going to go to, and all those things take more time. So do a strategy meeting a couple years out with your advisor, and that'll make things a lot more clear. For more information, please go to texastenantrep.com. That's texastenantrep.com. Hello, friends. Bob Gibbons here, back with the Next Level Show. We're talking to Gary Hirsch, Hirsch's Specialty Meats in Plano, Texas, and check him out online, hirschesmeats.com. So, Gary, you got a really successful store. You got the single location, and it's doing really well after you moved to the new location with much higher visibility. What else do? Do you open up a new store? Do you decide to do wholesale? What's the next evolution?
Well, funny you should ask. A while back, we did try to open up a wholesale business. I had a friend in the food business that was in deep with all the big major wholesalers in the area, and he loved our sausage. We make 36 different types of sausage from scratch. And he said, look, if you can mass produce this, I can get you in all the big distributors. And I was so encouraged by that. We went out, we got loans. We found a building, we finished it out, made a state-of-the-art USDA-inspected facility, and unfortunately, a week before we got it open, he had a massive heart attack and died.
Oh, no.
Now, a little guy like me trying to get into a big distributor, they won't even look at you, won't talk to you, you're just nothing. So we tried on our own. We did get into some local restaurants. We had a little bit of business, but after a couple of years, I could see that it was not going to work.
So when this guy died, I mean, a week before your opening, I mean, what did you not have contracts at that point already?
No.
Oh
No.
my goodness!
No,
This
we
is all
still
done.
had a learning curve to go through.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's horrible.
Yeah.
So what do you do? I mean, you got this debt now. You got employees you've had to ramp up for. You got new equipment.
A lot of bills. We lost a lot of money, unfortunately, over the years, to the point where you say, let's stop the bleeding. So what we did is we shut that down, and I had somebody come along and said, I'd like to rent that facility out from you. Great. All right. This will work. Well, unfortunately, this person, after several months, couldn't afford to pay rent.
Oh, no.
So you go through these procedures. Okay, let's lock you out, unfortunately, and then they finally come back, catch up a little, and you go through this again, and they do it again. Well, they say, don't worry, we're going to catch up. And what do? No, they file bankruptcy.
Oh,
So now you can't get them out.
Yes.
So you go to court with these people, and the judge feels sorry, and you got to let them stay there for several months more on your dime. And meanwhile, they're just your plant, your facilities, just going down the drain because they're not maintaining or taking care of things.
yeah. And
Finally, you do get them out, and it's a disaster.
and in a building like that, it's normal for the tenant to be responsible for maintenance on the whole
Right.
building, the landscaping, the whole thing, and so obviously in bankruptcy, they're not doing that. And, the law says that once they file bankruptcy, they have to, number one, continue paying rent. Any rent that they were delinquent for prior to the filing date, what they call the petition date, pre-petition rents that they owe you are set aside, and that just goes into the pool with all the other creditors. But post-petition, they're supposed to stay current on the rent, and they're supposed to either ratify the lease and keep it or reject it within 60 days. But as you point out, that bankruptcy judge has all the latitude in the world to do whatever he or she wants to do and string out the greedy landlord. Oh, man, I feel for you. I've been there.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating.
So what we decided to do after that was actually gut the building. We had a little auction, sold everything off, able to pay some debt off, turned it an office warehouse, and actually started to lease that until we finally had the company came in, and they leased it about a year, and then the building was up for sale, and they decided they wanted to keep it, and they bought the building, which
Nice.
got us out from under it, but still over the number of years we had, it was a losing proposition.
So looking back on the whole debacle of the wholesale business, what would you do differently should you ever do it again or advise somebody else if they were thinking about doing that?
I didn't do enough homework. I should have done a lot more homework. I just believed and trusted in somebody that had no idea that it would turn out the way it did.
Is the wholesale business fundamentally a different business
Yes.
than the retail?
Yes. Your profit margin's a lot lower. You got a whole different business model than retail.
So you got to do a lot of volume, I guess.
Volume.
Okay. Get right up on that mic for me, Gary, if you would. I'm
All right.
getting waved by the in the booth. All right, so different models, different ways of marketing. So you mentioned the distributor. You had to get into the distributor. So you're not going to the Albertsons, the Walmarts, the Krogers directly. You have to go through a wholesaler who then sells to them. Is that the way it works?
Not always, but in a lot of cases, because they're going to distribute for you. You can take a large quantity to them, and they're going to sell to their customers. Whereas if you try doing it on your own, like we were in several restaurants around town that I was delivering to personally.
So is it more the issue of the delivery, or is it more the relationships that you're buying whenever you work with that distributor? I mean, which of the? I mean, is it both, or is one of those two things the thing that is?
Well, it's
really...
both. You have to have a relationship with the distributor. They've got to know your product. They got to feel that they can sell that product to their customers.
Right. But I mean, let's just say you wanted to go into wholesale again, and you're not going to use a distributor. You're just going to do it based on your own efforts. Now you have to buy all the trucks to get the meat there. But now you get your own relationship with each of the, because like, for example, on Shark Tank, you hear these people that create some food product and they go directly to Whole Foods and try to sell it into Whole Foods. Or they try to sell it into Target or whomever. I mean, is that not a realistic or efficient way to do it? It's more efficient to do that through a distributor?
It's a way to start out.
Okay.
But it's not anything I'm compelled to do again.
Yeah, that was probably more of a proof of concept thing for those people, but ultimately they'll probably go distributor at some point. I've never had anything to do with distributing products or even creating products. I've always been more in the service business and in commercial real estate, and so it's a fascinating area. Now that you have all these third-party logistics companies that handle so much of this. I mean, you call them distributors, third-party logistics, but I mean they will handle everything in some cases, from the manufacturer or assembly to the distribution to labeling. I mean, it's just all kinds of stuff that they can do. And I don't know if they have those kinds of companies within the food business. I mean, certainly distributors they do, but the third-party logistics folks, I assume they do, but haven't ever looked into that. Interesting. So the whole time from when you say I'm going to do the wholesale to the time you quit that, when that guy has the heart attack, how long did you sort of keep trying to make that work before you sort of said, all right, we're out of this and we're just going to lease our building?
Oh, gosh, you're asking me timelines.
Going back in the memory.
2000, 2001, probably through 2012.
Oh, so a long time.
Yeah. So I remember in 2008 when the bottom fell out, it's like somebody flipped a switch. And now I've got all these payments for both that facility plus, what we're doing at a retail level. And once again, I go to my accountant and go, what do? I can't keep up with this. And let's talk to the bank. What do you mean? Let's go talk to the bank. Let them know you're having issues. See if they can help you out. I said, you can do that? Sure enough, went to the bank, and they said, yeah, no problem. No interest for 6 months. Do this, do that. And I'm like, and that got us over the hump.
Nice.
Once again, I had to count on somebody that knew more than I did to help me out. But
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to when you first started. You'd mentioned that part of the concern that you had working for the chains was the fact that they were being driven down by price, and they were competing on price, not on quality. So the implication was that you were very concerned about quality. So I assume, given the name, Hirsch's Specialty Meats, that you're not trying to sell the lowest quality meat at the lowest price.
No, not at all. I saw a niche when I worked at Simon David. I saw the clientele they had there. And there was people that wanted better quality product, were willing to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I learned. I learned about the quality of meat. And that's something the average person really, they don't know how to tell the difference in quality. And that's our biggest, I guess, what we're trying to fight is the lack of knowledge that people have about fresh meat products.
Right.
They really don't know much about it. They hear some things on, the internet or TV, and they don't tell you the whole truth or all the facts. And they end up believing a lot of things that just aren't true about the industry, which I kind of fault our own industry because our industry is not doing anything to educate the public.
Well, I got to believe that there are certain people like yourself that really wants the public to be educated, so
Yes.
they know what they're buying and they're willing
Yes.
to pay for the better stuff. But then I got to believe there's a whole lot of them, especially the chains, that really don't want an educated buyer. They just want somebody that says, "Hey, I just need some ground round for some burgers this weekend. What do I care what the quality is?" So you kind of have an industry which is kind of not exactly on the same page with how to educate the consumer.
Right. And I've talked to people from the Beef Council and the Pork Council, and I've asked them that. Why are you not educating the public? Why are you not telling them that women need the iron in beef more than men do? Pork tenderloin's actually leaner and less calories than chicken breast. There's so many good things about meat products. I've actually had doctors send people like yourself to our store, vegans, because their diets weren't working for them, and they needed the proteins in meat to get them healthy, believe it or not.
I have actually a sister-in-law and a cousin who were both vegetarian, and doctors said, you got to get more protein. You need to start eating meat, and both have.
Mm-hmm. So that I want people to be educated, but I believe this is kind of what someone on one of the councils told me. They said, look, if you had a product and you could sell every ounce of it all the time, why spend the money defending yourself?
Oh, wow.
Like a waste of money.
And is that is the case? That
appears to be. You don't see, every country, I don't know if it's every country, but all the countries, many countries outside the United States wants our meat products because they're the best, highest quality anywhere.
Really?
Yes.
Because I always hear like these Japanese beef.
The Wagyu is amazing.
And the Kobe and all this.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing stuff, but it's so unaffordable for so many people. That's not going to be, a common commodity for everybody.
Yeah, well, just the shipping costs alone. Or is Wagyu and Kobe actually, can they raise that here, or do they have to be raised?
Oh, they're raising a ton of it here. We sell a lot of American-raised Wagyu.
Okay.
But there's, once again, different levels of quality of the Wagyu or Kobe beef.
Gotcha. All right, we're going to take another quick break. We will be right back after this. Hello, Next Levelers. Bob Gibbons again. We are talking to our friend Gary Hirsch of Hirsch's Specialty Meats. And check them out online at hirschesmeats.com. So, Gary, one of the things that anytime we start talking about food, whether it's fruits and vegetables or whether it's meats, that I hear so much about anymore are organic and non-GMO. So, organic, not organic, I know that applies to meats. Does the GMO thing, that can't have anything to do with it, does it?
Texas A&M is a great place.
Okay.
You could go down there and take a course about the beef industry called Beef Brief. And that's some of the things they cover. And what I found out about organic versus commodity is so minimal. It's so minute. To me, organic, when you hear about organic, it's a process. It's keeping things clean, free of certain items.
Right.
But even in organic products, you can still find traces of things that shouldn't be there. Just from Mother Nature, things happen.
Right.
They've done studies on organics versus commodity products, fed them to groups of people, checked their blood, see what difference there was. And they found no difference.
So paying up for the organic is not really...
In my book, I don't go all the way to buy organic.
So like I had a guy that used to work with me in Fort Worth, a long time ago, 20 years ago, and he had a farm, a ranch, whatever, west of Fort Worth, and he did specialty beef raising. So he would, you could order your cow, your beef, a year in advance, and he would feed this cow exactly what you wanted them to eat. All organic grains or certain kinds of grains or, whatever. And so after whatever period of time you've agreed on, he delivers that cow to you and, it's already been processed. But so if you have 5 cows in a row and each of them has a different eating regimen, is there going to be a significant difference?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure there is. It's like comparing grass-fed cattle to a prime-grade cattle. Way different. Completely different tasting, textures, everything.
So why wouldn't that be the case when it comes to being fed organic grains and whatever they eat
Well,
versus
you can
others.
have the same grains, maybe one certified organic and the other's not certified.
Okay.
It's still the same grains. It's not going to change anything
So
to the animal.
So the result to the beef that you're eating later, you're not going to be able to tell the difference.
I would be shocked if anybody could.
Interesting. Now, what about the GMO thing? Is GMO a factor in any way when it comes to?
I haven't heard much concern really about that from people.
Because I don't know that anybody has that
More,
concern. I know when it
corn
comes to the corn and
Yeah.
fruits and vegetables, I hear about it. But once you feed an animal a GMO or not GMO product, I mean, once it gets through their whole system and digested, or whatever, and they are processed, would you ever know the difference?
Okay, here's another thing. People talk about steroids and antibiotics in animals.
That was the next
Against
place.
the law to put that in meat. Okay, nobody puts that in their meat. Yes, if you get a sick animal, you're going to give it just like you. You get the flu, you run the doctor, you get your Z-Pack, right?
Exactly.
Okay, you get better, great. Next year you get the flu again, you go get another Z-Pack. Why? Because it does not stay in your system forever. Same thing with animals. You get a sick animal, it's going to get medication. But before that animal can be processed, it has to be off any medications for 100 days before it can be processed. So it's out of their system.
Oh.
It does not stay in their
I
system.
did not know that.
But people believe we're putting all kinds of things in there to make them bigger, and no.
And what's funny to me is that some of these quote documentaries that you see on Netflix or wherever, there's the knives over forks thing, or forks over knives, I guess it is, just the opposite of what I said. Forks over knives, and so you watch that and it scares the hell out of you, and you think, I'm never going to eat another piece of meat in my whole life. But then you watch another one, and it talks all about the benefits of being, on a high protein diet and not having all these other, things that are also maybe not organic and may have pesticides to grow them, and et cetera. So it's kind of like, who to believe?
Exactly.
And it seems like whenever somebody makes one of those documentaries, they have an agenda they've already decided on before they even make the movie or the
Sure.
documentary. And I don't know. At this point, I'm kind of become a bit cynical that I don't really believe that there's a truly unbiased story being told on video, on film anymore when it comes to this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sounds like marketing.
It does sound like marketing, and sometimes I'm not really sure what they're marketing. Like the knives over forks people that are, vegan. You can't have any animal products. What are they selling? What's their agenda, and why are they doing that? Because I've already said I'm a vegetarian, but I'm only a vegetarian because my mother raised me that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because I chose it, and I actually tried to get over it in my 20s. I honestly just didn't like the texture. There's nothing wrong with it. I have no moral or religious objection to it whatsoever. It's just what I chose to do. So fine, but I'm certainly not dogmatic about it. I'm not, a fanatic in any way. Somebody wants to eat it, I could care less. And in fact, if Jan makes something at home with beef broth or chicken broth in it, I couldn't care less. I just don't want the meat. That's just me. But I don't get the agenda of others that are making this such a do or die kind of thing for them. So anyway,
Everybody's different.
yeah, I guess so. And live and let live, right? But
Yeah.
a lot of people just don't want to let others live.
But see, I can relate to you and with like mushrooms. To me,
Yeah.
it's a texture thing.
Yeah, I hate
And
them
they
actually.
taste like dirt, but people love them.
Yeah, I hate
Me,
those too.
no, don't give me a mushroom.
All right. Well, so what is one of the biggest risks facing your industry right now, and maybe even your business specifically?
I don't see any great risk. Well, maybe one. In order for my industry, which is retail meat market, is you need meat cutters. There are no meat cutters. You cannot hire a meat cutter. There's not young people going to school to learn to become meat cutters, which is a shame because, like many other trades, I have friends that own air conditioning business, automobile repair businesses, and they're having a hard time getting techs
All of
because
them.
kids aren't going into the trades, which is crazy because you can make such a good living now being in the trades. Retail meat cutter right now, almost all the people we have at my store cutting meat, we've trained from scratch.
Wow.
The deal is in my place of business, in order to get more money, If you keep just washing dishes the whole time you're there, you're only going to make that amount. The more you learn, the more you can do, the more valuable you become, the more money you're going to make here.
Right.
So everyone's cross-training, learning this, and we've had some great people not only learn to cut meat, but go on and open their own meat markets.
Oh, really?
So that makes me very proud to see that.
Wow. So you're like an incubator.
Kind of, yeah, but you kind of get tired of training people for Whole Foods.
The problem. I believe me, I feel your pain. I've done the same thing, not in meat, of course, but in real estate. Well, yeah, I mean, so I hear that a lot from the trade. So we've had a lot of people on the show that have had, like you say, air conditioning or you name it, whatever the quote blue collar trade is, that are having such a hard time, and the average age of those people are really getting up there. It's starting to get kind of scary as to how. What we're going to do for those trades long term.
You're going to pay more.
You're going to pay a lot more.
You're going to pay more.
But we also are going to have to import those skill sets because we're not training them. And I kind of fault our government in a way because they keep hammering everybody's got to go to college. Everybody's got to go to college. Let's give everybody free college. Well, you know what? Not everybody should go to college. Not everybody wants to go to college. And why in the world do you go to college and get a degree that when you come out, you're making less money per year than the cost of the education per year you just got.
Good point.
And you have no real prospects long term for making more unless you go get advanced degrees. I mean, psychology, for example, social work for another example. And there's nothing wrong with those people or the people who want to learn that, but just the reality of where are the jobs for those people to earn a livable wage once they come out. Architecture. I do a lot of work with architects. The kids that come out of architecture school and are the sort of the low people on the totem pole, they don't make any money when they come out. And I'm just thinking, all right, if you would have gone and become a bricklayer, become a meat cutter, become a air conditioning tech, whatever, you could be making a lot more money a whole lot faster.
Yeah. And my mentor, John, also told me years ago when I was working for him about the food business. And what his recommendation was, he said, Flash, people don't have to buy a new house every day, don't have to buy a new car every day, don't have to buy a new pair of blue jeans every day. But you know something? They sure like to eat every single day. Now, if you stay in the food business, I can't guarantee you'll ever get wealthy, but you'll always have a job because people have to eat every single day.
Yeah.
Kind of made sense.
Yeah, I mean, and the grocery business is notorious for having really low margins overall.
Yep.
So it's amazing how there's been such a competitive nature within that industry, and a lot of expansion. Like H-E-B, I understand, went into Houston many years ago, and they just blitzed the market and have a huge market share now, like 60 or 70% market share in Houston, which is pretty incredible that one firm would have such a high percentage. I have no idea what the numbers are in Dallas. Of course, H-E-B is not in Dallas except for sort of far south Dallas, Johnson County, and with their Central Market brand. But H-E-B itself is not in Dallas, at least not yet, although they own, like I understand, 30 or so sites where they could do that if they wanted to. They just haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. So we'll see if that ever happens.
Where are they going to get the meat cutters?
Well, they're going to come find the ones that are Hirsch trained. You need to have Hirsch certified meat cutters that you have.
Maybe something I can do when I retire.
Well, we only have about 30 seconds. Why have you not opened up many more stores?
Shortage of meat cutters.
Really? That's the main reason?
That is such a key. You have to have good meat cutters that know how not to waste. Because everything in our business, you can have no waste.
Yeah.
Or very, very minimal.
That's your profit margin.
You have to know what to do with your product so you have no waste. And you're talking about very perishable product.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to believe the cut makes such a big difference on your profit margin. You cut it wrong, you've lost your profit margin. If you cut it right, you can maintain that. Well, Gary, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Love the conversation. Guests or listeners, please go to hirschesmeats.com to look up Hirsch's Specialty Meats. And for the show, please go to thenextlevelshow.com, and we will be back next week with another great guest. Bye.